everybody, and welcome once again to Mike Burstyn and Friends. This time, my friend is a very dear friend, and I'll tell you how long we've known each other. Actually, he'll tell you. He is an actor, director, producer. He was inducted into the Bronx Jewish Hall of Fame in 2016, nominated for a Drama Desk Award for his portrayal of Willie Loman in the Yiddish version of Death of a Salesman. And he's best known for several of his award winning uh, Too Jewish or Too Jewish 2. I don't know whether there's a Too Jewish 3, but we'll discuss it with my friend Avi Hoffman. Avi, welcome to Mike Burstyn and Friends.
Shalom Aleichem, Mike.
Uh, Aleichem Shulam. Uh, First of all, want to ask you how you're doing in this crazy time that we're just approaching. I should say we are today is on the 29th of December. In 2 days, we will finally get over this uh, year that
Yes.
we're going through, and we'll go into
Geshoin Avek.
oh, Keisha, I don't know. Nothing, anything is better than what we've been going through. But how have you been coping? How is mom? How's the family? How's
Oh,
Laura?
danken
How's
Gott.
everybody?
Abi gesinnt kann man glücklich sein. As long as you have your health, you can try to be happy.
Yeah,
Charles Dickens, I think, got it right. It was the worst of times. It was the best of
best
times.
of times. Yeah,
And so I am, as you, we're finding a whole new way to reach out to those who love what we do. And I'm amazed at how many people all over the world, hundreds of thousands of people,
yeah.
love Yiddishkeit and Jewish culture and Yiddish language. And it's been an explosion since COVID. People are sitting at homes, they, they don't know what to do. So they're looking for stuff that makes them feel good. And it's Hamish and it's wonderful. And
What I didn't mention was your organization, which you founded and has
with my
contributed.
mother.
Yeah, with your mother, with Miriam, which has contributed enormously here in the States and worldwide to the advancement and the legacy of our language of Yiddish. And the organization is called,
Well, originally it was called the Yiddishkeit Initiative, which is
right.
the official name of the organization. But people couldn't spell it. I would say Yiddishkeit Initiative. They go, okay, hold on. That's Y-I, is that one D, two, so it was hard. So we changed the brand. Yiddishkeit Initiative is the letter Y and the letter I, Y-I. And then we said we love being Jewish. So Why I Love Jewish became our website, whyilovejewish.org.
And I will
And
put it when when I organize this, I edit all this stuff of mine. I have to, the necessity is the mother or the father of invention. So I do the editing myself. We'll put the link to it when I edit this. But yeah, you're right. Listen, we are blessed. I believe we are the lucky ones because there are so many unfortunately, around the world that are having so much more trouble than we are. So we have to say Gamza Latoiva and be happy with, grateful for what we have. So let's schmooze a little bit. You know that I joined you a
pleasure.
couple of weeks ago on one of your broadcasts, and it's been a long time that we said we'd get you on mine, and let's schmooze about what's happening, what we're doing, and ultimately, before I forget, towards the end, we have to talk about our project that we are working on
Mutual
together.
project.
So, tell me a little bit about what's been happening.
Well, it's been a fascinating ride. 9 months since the COVID shut everything down, and you and I both, as so many of our colleagues, lost all of our work. I mean, suddenly I had 15 or 20 gigs lined up with orchestras and concerts and shows, and suddenly it was all gone. And so instead of just, rolling up into the fetal position, which I was inclined to do, um, I decided that I had to try to do something. And so I invited three musicians to my house, and we sat in the living room. We socially distanced, and we did a concert. We called it Klezmer in Quarantine, and we did a show called Yiddish Tangos. And it was all these old Yiddish tangos from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, Molly Pecan songs and Secunda and Lebedev and just all these wonderful tunes. And I was working with a music director named Aaron Kula, who is from the famous Kula Yichus. His brother is a rabbi. He's got brothers. They're all rabbis and cantors, and Klal, the Klal organization in New York, is
Right.
his brother. In any event, he joined me, and together with two other musicians in my living room, we went Facebook Live. I turned on my computer and I said, I'm going live on Facebook. And we did a concert. It was just an impromptu concert. And 120,000 people watched it. And suddenly we realized that there is an enormous market out in the world. And these 120,000 were from all over the world, from Australia and from Israel and Europe and in Poland and Germany and Russia, Ukraine, South Africa, Australia, Canada, all over Canada, Mexico, Buenos Aires. You remember, Mike, you probably better than I remember the great Yiddish circuit that used to be global, where you would do a Yiddish program and it would go all over the world.
Yeah, but in those days, that's why, you're what you said at the beginning of when we started talking, the worst of times and the best of times.
Right,
Look what happened in the last year. Who would have believed? In those days, we had to travel to
right,
all these places, to South America, to Argentina, to South Africa, to Australia, to Israel, in order to perform. Right now, look what's happened. It's this, I guess these are the best of times, because who would have imagined
right.
that you could sit in Florida, I can sit in Los Angeles, and we can reach out
Right, you do? Yeah,
and not only speak, or years ago we could speak to people,
right,
around the world. Today, not only can we speak and see them, but they can enjoy what we have to offer.
right,
you know the greatest, for me, the greatest joy is being able to make someone else happy, to contribute to someone else. And look what's happened. Would you have believed a year ago, if you
right.
told me that we'd be doing this right now?
Never in a
I'd
million.
say you're talking about,
Never,
science
never.
fiction.
Absolutely.
So, we have something new that we should, like you are taking advantage of. We have to adapt
Right.
to the new way of life. This
We
is
are
our new
evolved.
reality.
In our organization on the website, we are thinking of ourselves as a Jewish cultural evolution, not a revolution, but an evolution. We are evolving with the times. And as I said earlier, we're discovering that hundreds of thousands of people all over we did a festival in September, 7 days, 44 events, 189 participants from 9 countries, from 11 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, programming for 7 days. 170,000 people watched the festival, joined the festival. So, what we're learning is we can now reach out to the world, and the world is coming to us. Once upon a time, you and I, we traveled all over the world to perform, and we will again, Mike. You know, the good news is there is a vaccine and it will take time. And if it's 6 months or 9 months or a year, the time will come when we can once again join, our brethren all over the world. But in the meantime, they can come to us. And even when we can go perform again, if we were to do a concert, like in 2 weeks from now, I'm doing a concert live at the Boca JCC. And again, there's no audience. It's just the musicians, socially distanced. We're doing it in honor of International Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Right, right, right.
We do a lot of Holocaust awareness programming. And so we are going to offer it live to Jewish organizations all over the country. We've already started a pilot project where we offered it to several JCCs who were able to broadcast it live to their members. And then 2 weeks later, we put it in our festival. So we're going to be doing that kind of a concert where we can be live, socially distanced, no audience, and reach out live to the world. Um,
You know
so
that
it's a very
that
exciting proposition. It's a
that's why
revolution.
that's why I said we are the lucky ones. What troubles me and what hurts me is all of our colleagues around the country and around the world, the actors and dancers and choreographers and directors who are part of this wonderful profession called the entertainment business. And since March of 2020, uh, they cannot do what we are doing. And that is the majority of
Yes,
our colleagues
yes,
that are in real trouble
yes.
uh,
It's a tragedy.
because they have no way of making a living.
It's a tragedy.
I mean, many of them can go on, the young kids, that can go on and sing and perform, but they can't pay their bills or their rent or their food by
Yep,
doing that.
yep,
And of course, there are organizations like the Actors Fund, which I
right.
contribute to all the time, and I recommend anyone who is watching us, if you want to help the people
That's
in
right.
our industry, the
Yep,
ones that tirelessly come in every day, if it's on Broadway or off Broadway or on TV, who are struggling today to survive,
yeah.
because the young performers who come to New York, for example, every year and audition, and
My
if they're
daughter,
lucky to not only audition but to get a job, and
right,
all of a sudden the rug is pulled right out of them
right,
in March.
yeah,
And in the old days, they could try and supplement while they're trying to make a living in the business by bartending or waitressing, but that's gone as well.
right,
No more restaurants, no more bars.
yeah.
And so that is what worries me. What's going to happen with those hundreds and thousands of colleagues of ours who don't
Well,
have the luck to do what we're doing?
I'd like to believe that we are coming very close to a new year and a new administration and a new world. And in that new world, we can imagine that people will be taken care of and that there will be care taken of the people who need it the most. So no one should go hungry. I mean, I'm sitting here in Florida, I'm looking at lines for food
Yeah,
that go on for miles.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's a shande. In Yiddish we say it's a shande.
yeah, yeah.
It's just a terrible, terrible embarrassment for America that we should be in this kind of a situation,
Yeah, but I really believe that in each industry, we have to take care of our own.
right?
And of course, we can't take care of everybody, but I think we need to concentrate and try and help those who, are in our business and are really in big trouble right now.
In
So,
some ways, that's exactly what we've been trying to do.
yeah,
Every event we do, everybody gets paid. The musicians get paid, the actors get paid. If it's a reading, they get paid. Everybody is getting something,
Yeah.
not a lot,
Of
but as
course.
much as we can give.
Of
And we
course.
don't charge. We do all of our programming for free.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Where because the public shouldn't have to pay, they don't have the money either. So we are now dependent on donors and supporters and sponsors and corporate entities and grant writing. So, this is a schwere Arbeit. It's hard. But, you said it, Mike. And I want to tell your viewers just a tiny little story. You said that the reason you do this is because you want to give joy to people. You want to give pleasure to an audience.
That's
And
what I.
when
That's what
I
I
was
have
a
to.
young
That's what I
boy,
have to. That's what we
and
have to give. That's what we have to give.
right, but a lot of people get into this business because they want to be rich and they want to be famous and they want to meet girls and they want to, who knows. I've taught actors and students who I ask, why are you in this business? And they go, well, I want to be a celebrity. I want to be a star. Well, yeah, okay, that's not the right reason. So when I was a young boy, before I left for Israel, the first Broadway show I saw
I
was
know. I know the
you.
story you're going to
I know
tell.
you know, but your viewers don't know the story. I was a boy and I was madly in love with you and your family, with your father and your mother, and the show that you did on Broadway called The Megillah of Itzik Manger. I knew every line by heart. I knew every song. To this day, you and I could probably do the entire show right now, just improvise. Seid Jeden schauen still, seid Jeden schauen still, seid Jeden schauen still.
Wir
Wir
fangen
fangen
nun
nun
den
den
Purim
Spiel.
spielen.
Yeah, I mean, I could do the whole show. In any event, that show changed my life because you imparted into me, your viewer, who was just a little boy, that joy. And when I came out after the show, I insisted that I go to the stage door and have you autograph my program. And I was a little boy. You came out. I was madly in love with you. You were my idol. You said, hey, little boy, what's your name? I said, Avrem Hoffman. You said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be an actor just like you. And here we are, all these years later, and it's quite a while. You and I have have been through the mill once or twice. All these years later, I still do it because I want to give joy to people, and
Does
that's
that
what
mean
we
I'm
do.
not your idol anymore?
In many ways, you still are, my dear. In many ways, you still, you know it too. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's mutual. It's mutual. I've seen you in so many things, so many of your performances over the years, but I just want to remember and reminisce about a friend of ours who was just like us, one of those rare, great natural talents and performers. The last time I saw him, dir zelengere jur, as we say, was when he performed with you. I remember it was in a one of the auditoriums in Florida. We went to see you, and I'm talking about Brucey Adler.
Yes, of
We went
course.
to see you, and I believe it was was it the Odd
The
Couple or was it
Sunshine Boy.
Sunshine Boys? Sunshine
The
Boys. And
Sunshine
yeah,
Boy.
and I came backstage with Siona and to visit you after the show in the dressing room. And I remember being very concerned because Brucey at the time
Yeah,
was very, very skinny.
very.
And he said that it had something to do with his back. He was having back trouble. But that was the last time I saw him perform. And, you should live and be well. It was so wonderful to see the two of you together. Uh,
850 seat theater, 8 shows a week,
right,
sold out
right.
for 3 weeks. It was unbelievable how people came out and loved him so much.
Yeah.
And it was the next to the last show because the next year I produced I'm Not Rappaport. And he did that show, and that was the last show that he did on the
Well, we grew up together. Brucey and I were 6 months apart. Uh, his parents, Henrietta Jacobson and Julius Adler, were partners with my parents,
right,
Pesach Geburstein and Lillian Lux, in 1945. Right after the war, they produced a musical called Wer ist schuldig? Who is guilty?
right.
And they were both, they played, Henrietta and my mother played war brides, and they were pregnant at the time.
Ah,
And
wow,
Brucey was born 6 months before me. And we were friends our entire lives. Unfortunately, we lost Brucey too early. And the only thing, actually, we never performed together, which is interesting. But what we did do, and it's still available, you can see it on YouTube, is we did a duet together uh, that was done
right,
for the documentary about my family, The Comediant. And we
right,
went up to the Hebrew Actors Union, the club, the
right.
two of us, and we did Romania together. So that's still
I've seen it
available
many
on.
times. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
So I just wanted to remember him because he
Well,
was
and,
so
and
so important to both of us.
and our executive producing director of the organization is Amy London, Bruce's widow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's all in the families. It's staying in the mishpucha, and it's very exciting to see how you and I also lived through the years when Yiddish was not so popular and Yiddish was of less interest. I mean, you grew up in Israel too, where Yiddish was like nobody wanted to even talk about Yiddish.
Well,
Uh,
listen, in the documentary in the Comediant, we talk about it, the fact that when we first came to perform in Israel in 1954,
right,
we were shunned at the time. The audiences, the survivors that had come to Israel after the war, they wanted the Yiddish theater,
right,
but the authorities were totally against it. They wanted Hebrew to be established as the national language, and they made us tremendous difficulties to perform in Yiddish. And ultimately, my father said, "Hey, they don't want us here," and we went back to the States. But what changed that was later on in 1965, the Megillah.
right.
When we did the
Then it changed
Megillah, that
everything,
changed the entire attitude towards Yiddish and Yiddish culture and Yiddish language
right?
in Israel. And
And
thank God to this very
today
day.
it's
Yeah.
thriving.
Yes. Thank God.
Today in Israel, Yiddish is so popular,
Yeah.
and little theaters and big theaters and Listen, my mother did the translation of Neil Simon's The Odd Couple into Yiddish
Mhm.
that Yaakov Bodo and
And
Yankele Halpern did
Yankele Halt.
together,
Yes, that's
and
right.
they won the Tony,
Yeah.
the Israeli Tony Award.
Yeah. Look,
So
things
Yiddish is hot. Yiddish is sexy.
it's
We're sexy
changing,
now.
which brings us, a great segue into an idea that you came up with, and let's talk about it because you did a wonderful version of Death of a Salesman several years ago in New York, which we saw. You were nominated for a Drama Desk Award for it,
As was the
and
production.
yeah, and your idea is the following. So
Well,
here
let,
you
let me
go.
let me let me give credit where credit is due. The New Yiddish Repertory Theater in New York, which is run by David Mandelbaum, he had the idea to do Death of a Salesman in Yiddish, and he called me up and said, "Would you be interested in playing Willie Loman?" And so I was very excited, of course, because that's the role of a lifetime. And in Yiddish, oh my God. And so that production, the small production in New York, was very highly acclaimed, was nominated for awards, as was my performance. But when that was done, and he was done with the production, I chose to continue because I thought it was such a great production, such a great vehicle. And I ended up acquiring the rights to do a production in Toronto at the Ashkenaz Festival. And we totally redid the show. and expanded it and made it, we added visual elements with different film clips, and it became a sold out production in Toronto. That was again called one of the great productions in Toronto's theater history. And then I thought, this should be a feature film. The concept of the Yiddish death of a salesman, the idea that the Lohman family is actually an immigrant family, or Willie at least, is an immigrant refugee who comes to America, starts selling on the Lower East Side buttons, pots and pans, schmattes. He becomes a salesman and he has little, and he carries around, trying to sell, and he slowly moves his way up and tries to live the American dream and becomes the salesman. And we all know the story, but making him a Jew and an immigrant totally changes the entire complexion of the piece. Now,
Well,
the
well,
more,
when Arthur Miller wrote it,
right,
I mean, to me, it seems, a no-brainer, obvious that this was a Jewish man. I mean,
yes. And Elia Kazan, who directed it, said, no, they can't be Jewish. So suddenly the boys whose names were David and Joshua were suddenly Hap and Biff. And Willie, who was Yisroel or Yehuda, suddenly became Willie Loman.
well, because in those days,
Yes,
everybody,
right.
everybody who had a Jewish name changed their name. I mean, so
Everybody
you
changed
couldn't,
it.
yeah, you couldn't perform.
Right,
It was, in Hebrew we say Hamevin Yavin.
right.
Whoever understood that
But
this play.
Arthur Miller wrote it about his uncle Manny,
Okay, there
who
you go.
was an immigrant, who was a salesman, who committed suicide from 1501 Broadway. And I got this from the research and from Joan Copeland, his sister, who told me the story. So he actually wrote this about his immigrant uncle Manny, who spoke Yiddish. Because one of the things that all the academicians say about Death of a Salesman is that some of the language is not English. The woman in Boston says, when will you be back? And he says, oh, 2 weeks about, 2 Wochen herum. It's Yiddish. He wrote so many of the lines. Attention must be,
Be paid.
paid. Not you must pay attention. Attention must be paid. And so the academicians have all looked into this piece and found the Jewishness. David Mamet probably is the most expressive. He basically came full out and said, there is no question. Arthur Miller wrote a Jewish play about Jewish people and a Jewish man. This is a Jewish play. And it's never really been done that way until we did it in Yiddish that way. And it changed the whole complexion of the piece. So I thought it should be
So,
a movie. I
yeah.
thought this has to be a feature film on location showing that amazing story of the death of a salesman, Toit von a salesman, but in Yiddish with subtitles, like a foreign film. And nowadays, Yiddish is so popular on Netflix with Shtisel, your television shows. I mean, you're doing all these amazing series. And there's Yiddish and Hebrew, and it's become very popular. So we acquired the rights as an organization to produce the movie. And I guess we can announce that you and I will star in the movie together.
And I have the flyer that you prepared that
Okay,
I will add when I edit this. I will
right.
put it up so
Good.
people can see the idea, and maybe someone out there.
If they go to our YouTube channel, we
Right.
put up a sizzle reel that shows what we're planning to do, and it's you and me, and how we're going to make this into a major, not a major motion picture. It'll be an independent film. I don't think we need to go crazy, but I think we could make a really great low budget independent feature film of Death of a Salesman in Yiddish.
And what is the YouTube channel?
It's
Is
Yiddishkeit Initiative. It's why I love Jewish. Just look up
is it like
Yiddishkeit
W?
Initiative.
It's like www. Why I like
YouTube.
Jewish.
No, no, no. It's on YouTube. Well, yes, you can go to our whyilovejewish.org,
Okay,
www.y, the letter Y, the letter I, like Yiddish,
love
lovejewish.org.
Jewish.org. I'll put that up.
And
And
then they can go to our YouTube channel and see we have 60, 70 programs. And we're developing all these very interesting ways to reach out to the community and offer a service. We do fundraisers for organizations. We are licensing programming to different organizations. We're doing this deal with the JCCs where they get to show their constituents the first, sneak preview of a concert before anybody else gets to see it. And then we go public with it. So we're developing all these different ways to reach out to the community, go to assisted living facilities where people who really do speak Yiddish, not just enjoy the language, but actually speak the language, they can enjoy our programs. So it's becoming a new world where we can offer these, wonderful services to a hungry, you know, the Jewish people are hungry. They're hungry for a connection. 85% of the Jewish people, and this is a terrible, terrible statistic, 85% of the Jewish population consider themselves unaffiliated. They're not affiliated with a temple. They're not affiliated with an organization. They're cultural Jews. They eat bagels on Sunday. They go to Chinese food. They remember the songs that their parents sang. They light the menorah on Hanukkah, but they don't go and affiliate. Well, 85% of the Jewish people is a lot of people. And they're hungry. It's not about Israel. It's not about politics. It's not about religion. It's not about organizational politics. It's just about the culture that's thousands of years old.
and they don't have that stigma anymore that the first generation,
Right,
especially American Jews, had.
right,
The embarrassment of the green,
yeah,
father or mother wanted to become Americanized. That doesn't exist anymore.
right,
We're looking for our roots. And I think what you're doing, especially with your organization, is also a mitzvah.
right,
You're doing a mitzvah to those, yeah, I mean, the Holocaust survivors around the world that are still with us are quite, not, I was going to say slowly disappearing. Unfortunately, they're not slowly disappearing. They're disappearing very quickly. And once they're gone, that Yiddishkeit, is in danger of leaving with them. And that's
right,
something we
right.
must make sure
Right.
that doesn't happen. The
We are the
Yiddish,
second
Yiddish,
generation.
yeah,
Second generation, the third generation, we're all picking up the banner and finding our own way to keep that legacy alive and thriving.
him ein anili mili. If
Really.
not us, then who's going to do it?
Right?
And I thank you,
And if
Avi.
not now,
When?
when?
Yeah.
Because
So I thank you for everything that you have been doing all these years. I mean, you were wonderful as a performer. You still are, but I always try and find a new challenge in life and in my profession. And the challenge that you took upon yourself is so fulfilling, I believe, and so important. So your Miriam should be very proud of you.
for those of you who don't know, Miriam is my mother, 25-year professor of Yiddish at Columbia University, 35-year journalist in the Vorwärts, award-winning playwright and author. And you can find her on our website.
Exactly. Check out the website because there's some wonderful books that you can also a choir of Miriam's, and may she be healthy and well bis 120, and may this pandemic, it's going to take time,
Yes,
Avi. It's not going to happen quickly, but eventually, in Hashem, it'll be over, and we'll be able to meet and schmooze, not just over a screen,
right.
but in person. So
Exactly.
sei mir gesinnt,
Shem
and
Yisrael.
let's see what happens with our project.
Yeah,
We'll try and make it a reality.
yeah,
Take
I'm very
care. Love
honored.
to you. Love to mom and to Laura and the girls. And we'll see each other soon.
I'm honored to call you my friend.
Thank you, my friend
Right.
Avi. Love you, and thank you, folks, for joining us this time. And I will see you again soon on Mike Burstyn and Friends. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot. I forgot something. Avi,
Yes,
I always finish my schmoozing with a question that I ask my friends,
sure.
and that is this: if I were to ask you who inspired your life, who would it be?
Well, I mean, I don't want to sound hyperbolic.
Who was your inspiration?
Look, my father was probably, my mother and my father were my biggest inspirations because both of them dedicated their lives to the preservation of Yiddishkeit and Jewish culture. My father was the chairman of the YIVO organization in the 80s. And he was very, very active in Jewish organizations. And in Israel, he was a producer with Rafi Shachar and Teatron Lilach. We made many movies and shows. I worked for them for 10 years in Israel, growing up in Israel as an actor. And my mother, of course, because of her enormous body of work that it will take, decades and university students for hundreds of years to be able to sift through. But I already told the story. Mike, you turned me into an actor. I always performed, but I never thought of myself as a professional actor until I saw your performance in the Megillah. And after that, I wanted to be an actor. And within a year, I was working in the Volksbühne in New York. I did, Bronx Express, 1968, with Zipporah Speisman and Jack Rechtzeit, and all of the old guys. It was pretty amazing. I mean, what an amazing, experience. David Licht, I think, directed. So you were probably my biggest inspiration to be an actor. Since then, I've been inspired by those who inspire others. Those actors who lose themselves in their roles have always inspired me, from the great classic actors, of course, that we all know, and the more modern, Dustin Hoffman and De Niro and Pacino and all those guys, but even Michael Keaton, people like there are just so many. Philip Seymour Hoffman, who played Willie Loman. I'm
Yes.
very honored to be the third Hoffman to play the role. Dustin Hoffman, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Avi Hoffman. Um, you know, I have always wanted to share my life with my audience. You mentioned my shows. My first show in 1994 was called Avi Hoffman's Too Jewish, because everybody in the industry said, "Oh, Avi Hoffman, nah, he's too Jewish," and I wasn't being seen. I couldn't get auditions, so I wrote a show because I couldn't get work, and it became a worldwide hit. And I've done it thousands of times. I've won awards, and it was on national PBS. And then that inspired me to write the next one called Too Jewish 2,
Two.
TOO, also Too Jewish. And that was an extension of how do the children of Holocaust survivors like myself, how do we adjust to an American world where we're first generation? I was born here, but I grew up in a in a European home, in a European sensibility. You know, my mother from Russia and Poland, my father from Hungary. And then the third show was called Still Jewish After All These Years. And it was, you know, my life in the Jewish theater, the Meshuggah life in the Jewish theater. So, you know, you've inspired me. My parents inspired me. There are many great, great actors and politicians and people who inspire others that I am inspired by the most.
Thank you, my friend. That's
Thank you.
it's very humbling to hear that, but I'm glad I was able to, if I was able to inspire you to continue all these years in our profession,
Yeah.
what more can I ask?
And I'm sure I'm not the only one. You
Thank you,
inspire
thank you,
many others.
thanks, Avila,
Thank you.
and thank all of you. See you next time. Shalom.